Thank you. Next witness.
Dr. Henry Clark, Executive Director of the West County Toxics Coalition based in Richmond, California, also a member of the California Environmental Justice Coalition. I'm here to encourage you to hold off on the confirmation today for a number of reasons. I work with Ms. Barbara Lee, and I don't doubt her abilities that people have testified to. That's all great, but the problem I have is that I want Mrs. Lee and DTSC to rescind that permit for the Kilimanjaro hazardous waste site based on the overriding circumstances. That's not consistent with environmental justice. Environmental justice of the laws that California have adopted as well as local jurisdictions is all based on Executive Order 12898 that President Clinton signed into law. And it means that, as many senators have said here today, that communities of color, low-income communities, are the ones that are disproportionately impacted. And these executive orders and laws that you have on the book here in California supposed to recognize that disproportionate impact. Yet you come back and approve of a permit for Kilimanjaro City based on some overriding circumstances. It ain't no overriding circumstances when it comes to violating people's civil rights and human rights. These are human rights violations. That permit should be rescinded. That overriding circumstance nonsense, in my opinion, should not be used to permit facilities in our community. If you're going to use it not to continue to dump on us. Thank you.
Ms. Tall. My name is Penny Newman. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice in the Riverside San Bernardino area, also a member of the People's Senate, working with the communities in our region. There are three sites that we particularly are concerned about. One is the Autumnwood site, housing tract in Wildemar, which you've heard testimony about. The agricultural park in Riverside, which should be a Superfund site, but instead DTSC has done a voluntary cleanup without verification of testing, and they're going to build homes on a land that was contaminated with 43,000 gallons of PCB contaminated sludge. We don't know if it's clean or not, and so that's a big concern. The other one is Pomona, with this cluster of polluting facilities that are clearly in violation, and no action is being taken. I think one of the problems, and I share the comments that you heard in support of Barbara Lee, of her character, of her ethics, of her integrity. I, too, have worked with her over a number of years. But also, as this committee has pointed out, it's not just the leadership here. It goes deeper into that. And I think we saw one example today, and that was the investigation in Pomona. We have a task force where the enforcement team is part of it, along with the Attorney General's Office, ARB, EPA, multi-agency that come down to the communities and really look at the problems identified by the community and find solutions. And one of those was to do an enforcement action in the Pomona situation. We were told, and meetings were canceled with the LADA because they were instructed by senior staff that there was no funding for it, they weren't going to fund it, and it was closed. So to say this is an ongoing enforcement, Ms. Lee has been misinformed by the staff, which is the crux of the problem with DTSC. You know, I helped in '84, I live near the Stringfellow acid pits, which is California's top priority Superfund site. We helped develop these laws. I helped develop DTSC. It is very personal to me because I know what this agency can be, and it's not now. We have to clean out some of those senior staff in order to make any difference. I think to hear some of the suggestions that Barbara Lee has made are great. The permitting approach, all of it. It sounds really great in the infrastructure of DTSC, but we aren't making paper clips here. People's lives are at stake.
Okay.
We have a bridge that is crumbling, and we're standing on the side saying, well, maybe if we get this developer to come in and give us a design, we put it out to the right contractors, they can build it the right way.
Thank you very much. Now,
Can I just one more second to finish it?
Go ahead, just finish up, please.
Because the point is, there are people on that bridge whose lives are at stake. And we're sitting back here trying to fix the internal stuff while people are literally dying. That has to change. The priority for Barbara Lee needs to be talking to those communities and solving their problems, not just doing the internal stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
I would like to submit a copy of the letter that we had previously sent to this committee.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Marisela Mares Alatorre, and I'm a member of People for Clean Air and Water of Kettleman City. I'm speaking on behalf of the California Environmental Justice Coalition, a statewide coalition of 57 diverse grassroots groups who have been affected by DTSC's failure to enforce federal and state health and safety and civil rights laws to protect our communities. Since we're the people that will be directly affected, we're greatly invested in making sure that the new head of DTSC is up to the task of protecting our communities. To this end, we urge this committee to defer voting on Ms. Lee's confirmation. In the 8 months that Director Lee was appointed by Governor Brown, she's granted us several meetings. We would like to express our gratitude for her willingness to make time to meet with us despite her very busy schedule. However, empathetic listening and good intentions do not protect communities. Actions do. In our opinion, there has been very little action on our various requests to fix the pollution in our communities and comply with environmental and civil rights laws. Our organization, People for Clean Air and Water of Kettleman City, filed state and federal civil rights complaints in March due to blatant civil rights violations by DTSC in their issuance of permits for the massive expansion of the Kettleman Hills Hazardous Waste Landfill, including DTSC's use of the English-only environmental impact report and hearing rules, which literally gave Latino Spanish speakers half the time to speak as English speakers. And yet DTSC deemed that this EIR was adequate and failed to respond to the civil rights complaint and remedy this violation. And this is very personal for me because my dad, who is a monolingual Spanish-speaking citizen, asked for equal time to speak, and for that audacity, he was hauled out by 8 policemen. So we urge this committee.
Did he come here once?
Yes, he did. He was here for Debbie Raphael's confirmation, so this is very familiar. We urge this committee to defer voting on Ms. Lee's appointment, to give her the opportunity to take more actions to resolve the issues that we brought up before her, and it would also give us, the communities affected, the opportunity to come back and testify whether it was sufficient action to protect us or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Dear Senator Leon and members of the committee, my name is Lisa Lappin. I have worked for 18 years as a teacher in Paramount, California. I joined the People's Senate in order to advocate for the welfare of my students and residents who I have grown to care for deeply. In 2013, the Air Quality Management District held a town hall meeting in Paramount to inform the community that they had been exposed to significantly elevated levels of nickel and moderately elevated levels of hexavalent chromium as a result of forging activities conducted by Carlton Forge Works. In October 2014, I presented the acting director of DTSC with 525 signatures from Paramount residents, requesting that their community be thoroughly tested to determine if these toxic metals were in the soil of their parks, residences, and schools. They requested that they be immediately cleaned up if detected. DTSC test results conducted in December 2014 indicate elevated levels of nickel and cobalt in dust and soil in the blocks surrounding the facility. The park refused access to allow DTSC to do testing, and so I have spoken with several residents living across from Carlton Forge Works who have expressed their extreme disappointment and concern that DTSC has taken no action to inform them of the results of the elevated levels of cobalt on their home and in their neighborhood. There's a public park immediately beside the facility where children continue playing daily. I am here to request the confirmation of Ms. Lee be postponed until she has had an opportunity to demonstrate that she will be responsive to the needs of this low-income community by communicating directly with them and creating an action plan for the cleanup of contaminated properties where children and their families live and play.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much. Next witness.
Good afternoon. My name Sen Rules Committee. My name is Milton Inuantuch, and I am part of Communities for a Better Environment. We're a statewide organization composed of Californians from Southeast Los Angeles, Wilmington, East Oakland, and Richmond. I want to hand this letter to the committee. And so this letter is from CBE, but also from East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice, Father John Moreta from Resurrection Catholic Church, Mayor Eddie de la Riva, and he's the mayor of Maywood. And so together we organized for the permanent shutdown of Exide in Vernon, and also for the community cleanup. And so we acknowledge that Barbara Lee has an extremely tough position. Also, we can testify that Barbara Lee has been accessible to us, has shown willingness to work alongside with the communities of East LA and also Southeast LA to address the horrible effects of Exide's long-term irresponsibility. We expect to continue working with the district, but however, we also demand an independent investigation on DTSC to highlight the inexcusable historic dysfunction of the department and to reform DTSC in that.
Thank you. Next witness. Next witness.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Socorro Vasquez, and I'm from the city of Huntington Park. I'm also a member of the Communities for Better Environment. I am a resident in this city where toxic air and hazardous waste is affecting the places we live in our workplace, and our schools, and particularly our schools. I am here because our communities are demanding a follow-up to an independent investigation of this Department of Toxic Substance Control. Historically, DTSC has failed to carry out the enforcement of laws and regulations against companies polluting with hazardous waste and toxins into our air. An example of this, as many of you have mentioned, is the Exide Technologies facility in Vernon, which has affected the health of thousands of people living in this area. DTSC has negotiated and helped Exide stay in business for decades. This is not acceptable. Not acceptable because we're dealing with human lives, especially our children. I am a teacher of small children in this community, and the children I have known have been struggling with many health issues, including asthma, severe colds, coughing, cancer, and all sorts of breathing problems. So these are some of the reasons why I urge you to support the independent investigation of DTSC. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
This is my student.
Please, take your time.
Hi, my name is Frankie. I'm a student at Linda Marquez High School in HP, and I'm also part of Youth Action with CBE, which he works in.
Communities for Better Environment.
Yeah.
Higher?
Since I started going to Youth Action, I started attending hearings about Exide, actions about Exide, and I've even gone door knocking to explain to people about Exide in case they didn't know. And I expect for DTSC to reform through an independent investigation because it would highlight what went wrong. Therefore, we can change the department and ensure that the communities throughout California are actually being protected. I want to make sure the director and staff of DTSC provide the much needed support to other communities as much as mine.
Thank you. You did a good job. Thank you much. Very good job.
Good afternoon. My name is Bradley Angel, and I'm the Executive Director of Green Action for Health and Environmental Justice, and also a member of the California Environmental Justice Coalition. And we join with our colleagues, and as I think you're seeing, the entire community environmental justice movement in respectfully requesting a postponement of any vote on Director Lee's confirmation. And I want to start again by also echoing what you've heard and really extend our appreciation to Director Lee for going above and beyond what we've ever experienced from a DTSC director in meeting with folks in the impacted communities with environmental justice and community organizations. We truly do appreciate it. But words and those meetings are not enough. And there are some specific action items that the California Environmental Justice Coalition and the People's Senate together submitted to you and submitted to DTSC to request action on so we can see action. We've been here before. Senator De Leon, I was glad you remembered that Maricela's dad, who's a grandfather, was here for Debbie Raffel's confirmation. And we heard a lot of nice words from Director Raphael. And what Kettleman City got was toxic dumping going from 1 truck a day to 400, courtesy of a permit illegally issued a year ago. We need a Department of Toxics that is not continued to be beholden to toxic polluters as it has been. And I've been working with communities from East LA to Kettleman to Bayview Hunters Point for 28 years. And it's a broken record of people getting sick and dying. And we need a Department of Toxics that will actually comply and enforce environmental laws and comply and uphold state civil rights laws. Department of Toxics is a recipient of state and federal funding. That is a fact. As such, it is required. It is not discretionary. It must uphold and conform with state and civil rights laws. I don't recall seeing an exemption for Kettleman City. On March 19th, a civil rights complaint was filed. It was no fault of Director Lee's. It's her responsibility to fix it. To this date, and I should say the Office of Civil Rights with US EPA quickly accepted that complaint for investigation. It included Spanish speakers being excluded from the EIR process that DTSC used. Let's come back in early September and see if Director Lee and the agency agrees with the Office of Civil Rights that there has been, and they've indicated to us that the lack of translation is a right affirmed by the courts under Title VI, yet for 3 months it hasn't been fixed. Let's come back and see that the new director will comply and uphold civil rights laws, pull that Kettleman permit, and comply with the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Hello, my name is Denise Duffield. I'm the Associate Director of Physicians for Social Responsibility, Los Angeles. We are also work with the People's Senate and with the California Environmental Justice Coalition. We're a longtime ally of the environmental justice communities, and we are also working now on the Jordan Downs site. I want you to know that the decision that the communities made to request that this confirmation vote be delayed was not an easy one for us to make. It was not light. It was taken with great deliberation, with great consideration, and with considerable anguish. It is not a request that we are making because we want to. It's a request that we are making because we feel we have to. We've had conference calls. Every single community felt they had not seen the concrete actions that they wanted to see. What Penny Newman said about DTSC senior staff is right on the money, and that was echoed with all of the communities. We know in the San Susanna Field Laboratory that Debbie Raphael said no radioactive waste, debris from Boeing's buildings that's above background should go to sites that are not licensed to receive it. An email came in from a Boeing lobbyist to a top senior staff. Next thing we know, tons of radioactive debris, low-level radioactive debris from Santa Susana Field Laboratory went to sites not licensed to receive it, including the Buttonwillow site. So right now, I also need to tell you, as a physicians organization, I'm the one on the other end of the phone call when we have calls come in from the community who have illnesses that are associated with contaminants at this site. Brain cancer, bladder cancer, breast cancer, children with retinoblastoma, leukemia, And it's on their behalf that we're here. We know right now DTSC has approved input factors into a report that would allow Boeing to leave most of the contamination on site. And so I'd like to not be able to receive those phone calls anymore, or at least to be able to tell people the contamination at the Santa Susana Field Laboratory is cleaned up. Barbara Lee has the power to make those decisions. She hasn't yet, so we ask for a deferral on the vote today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Hi, thank you, Senator De Leon and Senate Rules Committee. My name is Cindy Gortner. I'm a cancer survivor, and I live near the Santa Susana Field Lab. This is personally hard for me to ask for postponement today because I have to say I like Barbara Lee very much as a person. She has great integrity, intelligence, and it was a delight to meet her family. But with a heavy heart, I say that I think the right thing to do today is to postpone. I liked very much Senator Leva's words about a toolbox. You today, Rules Committee, have a tool in your toolbox, and that's postponement. I think that sends a message to Barbara Lee to help fix some of the problem with the staff that's been there a long time, and I'm not sure they're on the same page as the community all the time. I happen to know that in 2010, under Linda Adams, who was at the Cal EPA, we were getting a lot of good things happening, and she had to clean house. Then after her departure and the hiring by Boeing of the former Cal EPA secretary as a lobbyist, and believe me, the lobbyists have a lot of power, I didn't have to move my seat today to meet two of them. Okay, I just was able to shake hands. So that is an elephant in the room. Let's talk about it. I think that is part of the problem with the DTSC. And when we were promised in 2010 that our site would be cleaned up completely, we're now seeing people that we think might be close to Boeing within her agency reversing that. It's very sad and it's very frightening for those who live nearby. Just this past week on the DTSC website, Boeing posted something that Barbara has a chance to approve or not approve by August 30th. And it's a cleanup plan that doesn't protect our community. And it's shockingly, after this is a site of a nuclear meltdown. It happened in August of '59. We just learned last week that on part of the Boeing property, the cancer risk, lifetime cancer risk, is 1 in 3. I have 3 children. This is really, really not okay. So I urge you to postpone and use your tool in your toolbox and give her the directive and the muscle she needs to go up and do what she can so the actions that need to occur for the communities take place. Thank you.
Thank you much. Next witness.
Hi, my name is Thomas Helm. I'm an advocate for Valley Improvement Projects in Modesto. I'm also a part of the California Environmental Justice Coalition and recently appointed as the Stanislaus representative for Environmental Justice Advocacy Group on our local airport. Got the long title out of the way. I'm going to echo a lot of things that have already been said today. A lot of it doesn't necessarily have to do directly with Mrs. Lee, but DTSC as a department as a whole and the past that we've had with them. I'll start off with something good and then move on. I appreciate that DTSC is taking on Gallo Glass in Modesto. I don't think that maybe had a lot to do with Mrs. Lee because it's something that's been going in the works for years, but as coming from Modesto, maybe others know, but Gallo has a lot of power, a lot of influence in the town, and because of that reason, it's usually very hard to look into some of the things that they're doing. So I'm very much appreciative of that. There is a few things that are very concerning, though, involving DTSC and Modesto. There is barium deposits near the freeway. The last thing I heard a year ago was that they were still deciding on whether to encapsulate that deposit or to dig it up and haul it away. Unfortunately, it would go to Kettleman City and dumped in their toxic waste ground. But about a year ago, the community was accidentally sent a mailer that said that they had already decided that they were going to encapsulate the barium site, even though that was not supposed to happen yet. There was supposed to be a public participation process, and since then, that was a year ago, I haven't heard much of anything about that public participation process or what is going to be decided. The last I heard was that it was out of DTSC's hands and then later heard that that wasn't the case. So I'm concerned about that and what's going to happen. And the last thing, I just found this out actually last week, so I'm wondering what more I have to find out about DTSC. But the one of only 3 trash incinerators is in Stanislaus County. They scrub out what's called fly ash from the filters, and I was told by an employee at Covanta that that is under the purview of DTSC, that it does contain cadmium and lead and other toxic chemicals, but that they, and this is what he told me, that DTSC allows them to put that in our regular landfill instead of sending that to a toxic landfill. And like I said, unfortunately, that would just go to Kettleman City, which is the last thing I'll just mention to echo everybody else's sentiment. When we did meet with Mrs. Lee, and I'll agree with everything everybody said, that she said all the right things, did all the right things, and it doesn't have much to do with her personally, but just a need to see action in order to have trust. And it seemed to me that when it came to Kettleman City, it was kind of like, we'll help you with all of these other things, but please just let that one go. And that's not going to happen. It's like Maricela said a minute ago, that's the core of environmental justice. And someone given half time for Spanish and then hauled out by police at a meeting, that's not going to stand.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next witness. We're sort of winding down. A couple more.
Hi, committee. This is Cesar Campos with Central California Environmental Justice Network. I didn't get a chance to speak to my board about this position, but given that some of them spoke before me, I think I'm in the right group. This is a very difficult position. I think we've all, sort of said that we all know that this department has failed communities of color for a very long time. And that's not a reflection on Ms. Lee, but that is a reflection on the programs that are within the department currently. And that is what I think everyone has said, and we need to address those things. I am excited about some of the plans that Ms. Lee talked about today to bring strong processes to reform this department. I am excited about the new position that is going to embed environmental justice within all of these processes. I think that that is something that the state truly needs. And again, let's make sure that these things don't stop at just plans. We've seen that before. Let's make sure that these things actually turn into action and turn into actually community benefits that we can all see. Our communities have been hurt, and those are the low-hanging fruit. They're going to want to be the ones that notice the benefits, but they're also going to be the ones that notice if this department continues to fail, and that's what we don't want. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Dolores Mejia. I'm with the Eastside Coalition Against Exide Toxic Technologies and also against all their partners in crime. I'm also here as a representative, a member organization of California Environmental Justice Coalition. Hello, Ms. Lee. And we all have provided you a number of recommendations that Ms. Lee responded to yesterday. East side of Los Angeles is a site of a toxic holocaust resulting from DTSC permitting companies like Exide in East Los Angeles and ChemWaste at Kettleman City to continue to contaminate us willfully and intentionally. Before Eastside Against Exide can support anyone as director of DTSC, we insist that she conduct a thorough investigation of each department at DTSC, along with the oversight by community EJ groups, community-based EJ groups. And we insist that she do this thorough investigation of each department with a moratorium on future permits until all existing or pending permits have been reviewed. We also need for proposed director to prohibit the use of the statement of overriding consideration to permit polluters to obtain to permit polluters to continue to poison us willfully and intentionally. Apologize for that. I was told to keep my comments in. On a personal note, my observation would have to be that this DTSC, the system is not broken. It was designed that way. So therefore, we need to review, reform, or just go ahead and remove DTSC altogether, and until such a time that we do get these results with respect especially to Kettleman City. We just can't support this nomination, this appointment at this time. But look forward to a future time that we can. Thank you very much. Expose, expel Excite, expose, expel DTSC if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Next and presumably last witness.
Thank you very much. Dan Hirsch, Committee to Bridge the Gap. In 1979, while teaching at UCLA, my students uncovered a partial nuclear meltdown in the Los Angeles area. And 35 years later, now teaching at UC Santa Cruz, I'm still trying to help that community get the site cleaned up. In 2010, DTSC promised to require all of the contamination to be cleaned up. But recently, DTSC personnel who are very close to the polluter reversed every one of those commitments. You have a letter that's been signed by approximately 50 organizations asking you to use your power of confirmation to try to get real changes in those 50 communities. The California Constitution is pretty unique. There's a division of power. The governor gets to veto your bills. You get to veto his appointments. That power is not very equally employed, however. Another aspect of the Constitution is that someone can remain in office for 12 months, but after that can't stay in office if you don't confirm them. The reason for that is because the Constitution wants you to be able to examine the performance of the nominee. You have some clout. You have some leverage for all those people you've just heard to say, Director Lee, we have a lot of good things that we've heard about you, but we've also heard that you haven't taken these solid actions. We're going to delay voting until later in the session, and we want you to come back and tell us, item by item, which of those you've done, and hear from the communities whether that is really true action. That is some power you, the pro tem, and members of this committee have that would help every one of those communities. Use your leverage to help Director Lee make some decisions that will actually help people on the ground. Because if you don't, they're stuck with a captured agency, an agency that's much too close to the industry there to regulate. And that culture problem is not going to be changed unless you use your leverage to help them. Please put off that vote, use your power, help these communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much.